My Lords, I begin by urging noble lords interested in the circumstances in Rwanda to pay close attention to the speech of the noble Lord MacDonald of Salford. The Rwandan Green Party has been at the absolute forefront of opposition to President Kagame, and they have paid dearly for it, including paying with their lives, and I want to acknowledge that today. But my noble friend Baroness Jones of Morscombe will later be concentrating on the contents of this bill, its hideous human impacts and its indefensible politics, the indefensible politics behind its existence. I'm going to focus chiefly on the amendment of the noble Lord Jermyn, which he so powerfully and effectively introduced to us. I'm going to set out why the Green Party believes we should vote down this bill today. In that, I am disagreeing with the noble Lord Ponsonby, who suggested making arguments with which we're all too familiar. We're the unelected House, we cannot overrule the elected House. Well, my Lords, could you really claim to have a functioning government majority in the House of Commons, a fast-shrinking majority, put in place with the backing 4 years ago, 3 Prime Ministers back, of little more than a third of registered voters, the majority of voters choosing opposition parties? It's not working, our constitution created over centuries of historical accident. The government is seeking to overrule on a matter of fact, as the noble lady Baroness Chakrabarti set out so powerfully, a judgment of the Supreme Court. And I'd ask those who've been in this House for decades to mull on that reality and consider how shocking, how unbelievable, how banana republic you would, a decade or two ago, have considered a suggestion, even a suggestion that that might happen. So what do you do? How about apply? We often hear praise for the independence of your Lordship's House and the relative weakness of the party whip on those old-fashioned parties that do still whip. How about you apply independence, judgment, independent thought to this bill, as your Lordship's House did last week in scrutinising the Rwanda Treaty? That scrutiny that the government has said it is going to dismiss without any consideration at all. Now, if the House cannot stop this bill that the UNHCR tells us is in breach of the basic principles of international law, what is this House for? What defence is there for its existence? Its very curious composition. Sure, we can scrutinise, we can tidy up the government mistakes in legislation, straighten out some of the worst elements, loosen things a little, and that is a job worth doing. But what use is that if we are within a deeply broken system to which the noble Lord Ponsonby referred? I think the noble Lord meant the asylum system, but it fits perfectly too as a description of our constitutional system, unable, it would seem, to defend the basics of the rule of law. Now, there is one point in which I am somewhat in disagreement with the noble Lord Jermyn. The noble Lord said the West is often accused of double standards. Well, the West is often guilty of double standards, something that's all too often been hidden in the past behind gunboat diplomacy and economic might. Well, the balance of the world is changing, my lords, and we are not any longer in a position to suggest that other nations should follow the rules while we do not. We desperately need the norms that have been established, very often by British campaigners, civil society, lawyers, over decades. We need those norms to be upheld, and that means we need to hold them ourselves. As the noble Lord Jermyn said, to pass this bill would be to undermine our global standing and undermine the principle of universality, however often in the past the West has ignored it in its own interests. Now, the noble Earl Canute, for whom I have the highest respect, said the Commons has the right to pass bad law. Well, my lords, the question that I'm going to leave you with is, how far would you go in accepting that precept? How bad does the law have to be? I've asked this question before when we passed a policing bill explicitly targeting Gypsy, Roma and Traveller people. I asked it in the Nationality and Borders Bill, when we declared millions of Britons to be second-class citizens, capable of having their citizenship taken away by the stroke of the Home Secretary's pens. The noble Lord, Lord Clark, asked, where are the limits? That's the question I put to your Lordship's House today.